Hello and welcome to another episode here on my channel. My name is ChaosMole and today we talk about why Lost Ark could be the next Final Fantasy XIV. And you probably already ask yourself, huh? How do you mean that? Well, it's pretty simple. I mean it as I said it. It could be the next Final Fantasy XIV with all its positivities and also a lot of negatives. Because Lost Ark came out about 3 years ago in 2018, at least in South Korea, and it started out pretty well. Like, tons of people checked it out, and then the game started to die. Like, no, not the internet, oh, your game is dead, dying, but it actually bled thousands and thousands of players every day, and it was on its last leg. And a lot of people assumed that this game will not survive the next year. So what happened? Well, two things basically happened to the game. The first one was the item shop. The item shop was really bad. And keep in mind, we are talking about a country here with South Korea who is very much ingrained in the whole free-to-play idea and using the item shop to buy advantages, and wherever it is possible to implement real money options, they will do so, and people are used to it. But even they were like, yeah, you know what? No. Like, this is crazy. You're asking what exactly? Like, no, sorry, man, we cannot do that. Like, the item shop was absolutely devastating for the game. But that wasn't the only problem. The second problem, and this was maybe even a bigger problem, was the game was not really deep. It was a very shallow game, and it was more about quantity than quality. Like, they had tons of different gameplay mechanics, tons of different things you could do in the game, but wasn't really in depth. Like, a lot of the things were not really fleshed out, and people were like, okay, I can do this for 20 hours, but it doesn't really do much for my character, and it isn't really fun. It was very boring, and they had like a lot of gameplay mechanics which looked really in depth on the first glance, but the moment you looked a little bit deeper into it, you realized, wait a second, what am I doing here? This doesn't make any sense. Like, let me give you an example. In the early days of Lost Ark, you would get your boat, as you still get today. But back then, you would have like tons of different icons on the ocean where you could just drive up and then dive for treasures. And I know that sounds exciting, like, oh my god, treasure diving? That's so cool. Yeah, till you realize it's basically just pushing a button, you see a little 320p video playing where a diver is like grabbing a treasure, and then you would get a few silver in your pockets. That was it. Nothing to it. That was it. And that was basically the problem with nearly every gameplay mechanic in Lost Ark. Like, it looked interesting and it looked like there's tons of stuff to do, but the moment you would look a little bit longer at it and you would take a deep dive, you would realize, oh, there's nothing here. Where's your raid content? Where are the dungeons? Where's the end game? What's going on here? Why would I do stuff? Like, it was a real problem, and for a lot of people back in the day, it was just not enough, and they did go back to their old games, and so the game was literally dying. But thankfully, the team was coming together, and the producer Koim Kang's son, which you can see here in the background, put their foot down, and they were like, okay, we have to do something. We have to revitalize the game, and we will introduce Season 2. And Season 2 of Lost Ark is nothing less than a realm reborn in Final Fantasy XIV. Well, not quite as significant. They didn't have to completely redo the engine, and they didn't have to redo like 95% of the whole game. It wasn't that crazy, but they cut down on tons of gameplay elements, and a lot of the things, like, as I said, the icons on the ocean completely disappeared. Or another example, in the previous Lost Ark version, in Season 1, they had like a card system. Right, you could play cards, like Gwent or some other games. It wasn't really as in-depth. Like, as I said, the problem was a lot of the mechanics didn't really do anything. They were not really that interesting. And they used this system and transferred it into the system we now have in Season 2, where you can collect cards, put them together, and then get some extra stats for your character, right? So they made actually something useful out of a system which didn't really work, which didn't really do anything, and was pretty boring to do anyways. And they did this for everything, for dungeons, new story, raids, and that is exactly what the people wanted. The people came back afterwards and they were like, whoa, what happened here? And they also added more classes, which was another thing like a lot of people wanted to see. Like they focused on the things which were wanted by the players and people loved to do already in Season 1. And that's what they focused on. The next thing they also did, they completely changed the item shop. And they changed it that much that people who came back were like, what is this? Wait, are you telling me I can technically play this game completely for free? Sure, I can take a shortcut, I can buy stuff which will make me reach certain points in the game faster. It was still, especially coming from a Western perspective, pretty much like pay to win, right? Or pay to shorten the time. But for South Korean, who were pretty much used to the whole idea of you want to get something in the game, you have to pay for it, this was a novelty. This was like, wait, I can reach this without paying now? What is this? And so people came back, and something else happened. This is very interesting. I know it's only a small thing, but it's still kind of ironic that it happened at the same time. In 2020, South Korea had a huge MMO scandal. And if you have not heard of it or read up on it, definitely do so. So what happened in South Korea is, and this is just a TLDR, I will not tell the whole story because it's really in-depth and you should read up on it or watch another YouTube video. But what basically happened is that developers of different studios use the free-to-play items and use the items you could buy in a shop, put them on a third-party market, and sell them directly there, but would interfere in the game how you would get them there. So that people had to go to the third-party marketplace and buy it from the developers. Again, huge scandal, and it destroyed the relationship basically the community had with the developers of those games because they couldn't trust them anymore. And there were tons of MMOs which died out overnight because nobody really knew anymore, like, are the items in the game manipulated? Are the chance of drop chance and all that, are they manipulated? Could we trust that? And then people were thinking, okay, well, I still want to play MMOs. Where do I go to? And they were remembering, hey, Lost Ark Season 2 just started. Heard a lot of good things about it. I should check it out. And here we are. Like, this game is now the biggest MMO in South Korea and the third biggest game in general in South Korea, which is crazy. An absolute crazy achievement in, well, those times. Like, keep in mind, even in South Korea, the big wave of MMOs died down. Like, it's not as bad as here in the West, but it was still pretty bad over the decades. So this is huge. And not only that, speaking about the developers and about Final Fantasy XIV, like how the game basically crumbled and then rise from the ashes like a phoenix, it's not only that, it's the team around producer Coin Kang Sun, which we will see here in the background, which is really listening to the community. And they also want to listen to the Western communities. They already have listened to the beta feedback. They have already looked into a lot of things. Just a few days on Christmas Eve, Mr. Kwame Kang here was going in-game, in the in-game chat of Lost Ark, and he was writing a letter. He was writing a letter to the community saying thank you, and also talking a little bit about the past and what they screwed up. And then afterwards, he was also, this was really nice, giving people the producer costume. Like, he has a special costume, which is normally only for him. And he gave that to the people, which, again, super nice of him. Director, not producer. I mix that always up. It's because Yoshi P is the director and producer of Final Fantasy XIV, and he is the director of Lost Ark. I mix that sometimes up, but he is the director. However, like, the team is listening, and the team is not just listening, they are talking to the people. There's an exchange going on, like, hey, what do you like to see? What do we want to do? And this is also what is happening here right now in the background, which is like a little bit like a get-together of the Lost Ark community by the end of the year, and they are talking about what happened in 2021 and what they are planning to do in 2022. And they were saying, like, hey, those are the things we did, things which worked, which we screwed up, which didn't work, the things we are planning. Like, right now they are planning to work in 2021. They have released a lot of vertical content, which means content which makes your character stronger and better. Like, it's progress, right? Progress content. And in 2022, they want to take a step back from that. They want to implement content which is also for the casuals. Content which is not just giving you more power, but which is just fun to do. They want to revisit the housing system. They want to implement more mini games. And they just want to implement stuff which is fun to do, which is not necessarily making you stronger. They also announced that there will still be 2 more raids in 2022, so it's not like for all the hardcore raiders that you are not getting anything, but there will be stuff coming. And you know, that's my point. It's like, this is a developer who knows about the mistakes they made. They learn from it, and they really saw like, well, shoot, we screwed this up. They didn't look for excuses, as sometimes people do and developers and publishers do, right? When a game is just failing and the community is unhappy, what we see often or not is this, oh yeah, well, if you don't like it, then not our problem. Like, we think we did pretty well. As like, but no, like, you screwed up, right? Like, okay, but can we talk about it? No, I don't think so. I think we know pretty well what we are doing, so yeah, no. And they do. They learn from the mistakes, like Final Fantasy XIV does, right? Like, Final Fantasy XIV, over the years, still has made mistakes. I'm not saying that Final Fantasy XIV is now a perfect game, neither is Lost Ark, but with both teams and with both games, you have the feeling there's a process where the community and the developers can come together and look for improvements and then try to implement them. And not just everyone is doing their own thing here, right? That's basically the point I want to make. And I'm really looking forward to Lost Ark here in the West, and now they are listening and implement the features the Western community wants to see. I'm really looking forward to that. With that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would appreciate if you leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, you want to see more Lost Ark content, gaming news content, more reaction videos, tips and tricks for new games, then I would appreciate if you might consider to leave a subscription. If you ever want to catch me live, you can do so from Monday to Friday at 9 a.m. ET after my vacation ends on January 3rd, which is in a week. You can find me on trovo.live/ChaosMole. No, it's not Twitch. I'm not streaming on Twitch, even though I'm a Twitch partner. You can find the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Stay safe. Till then.